There's a handful of quarterbacks that are out there right now that can help an NFL team right away. You got the Kirk Cousins, you got the Baker Mayfields, and the Ryan Tannehills of the world. You can look at the backups with Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett and go, okay, they could be helpful. But I think the three guys there, you've got legitimate starter, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, legitimate starter, Ryan Tannehill, stopgap starter. What are the landing spots for those three quarterbacks where you go, that makes absolute sense?
I think with Kirk Cousins, there's a report from Pro Football Talk that I know everybody's kind of shrugging at that he's looking at properties in Atlanta. I think Atlanta's the perfect fit.
Yes,
for Kirk Cousins. I think that would be a good fit. You just need a guy to distribute the ball and not screw it up. You have plenty of playmakers around him. You got him at every level, and I think they could be very good. So I think Kirk Cousins in Atlanta.
What do you think that deal looks like?
It's not going to be a fully guaranteed deal, and I think he knows that. When
Is this
Minnesota wasn't going
deal?
to do it, I bet it's probably
Three?
I bet it's a 3-year deal with 2 and an option on it because he is
With
coming off an
non-guarantees in year 2?
He's coming off an Achilles injury, so you're sitting there and you're looking at it going, what kind of Kirk Cousins are we going to be getting back? Even though the Achilles has changed. I mean, it doesn't seem like it is nearly the death sentence that it once was. For Baker Mayfield, I think he just stays. I don't see him leaving Tampa.
Not only that, do you think that there's a better fit for him anywhere else?
No. I mean,
I can make one argument.
I think Minnesota would be a very good option for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Atlanta would be too. But other than that, no. Because I look at Pittsburgh, I think Russell Wilson ends up in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And I think that's okay. And I don't think that's a good fit for Baker Mayfield. I don't think that he and Mike Tomlin are going to be the best of buds. Nor do I think Russell Wilson will.
No, I think and that's the thing is everybody keeps talking about Mike Tomlin will kill him.
But I think Russell Wilson's going to be going there with the tail between his legs. And I think that's the important thing, is that I think he is not this has got to be humbling for him. And if it's not, his career's done. Done.
Do you see him ever making the transition to backup?
No.
It's starter and then hang it up, right?
Yep.
Doesn't hang on.
No. Like, we don't see guys who go and win Super Bowls who, like, in all of this, like, Russell Wilson, the question with Russell Wilson is, like, it was like surefire first ballot Hall of Famer to, if this continues to go sideways and he's a horrible teammate, it's not first ballot, it's not second ballot. It is like you go to the third ballot. But right now, all of his numbers, they stack up to being a surefire Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a Super Bowl, went to another Super Bowl. You have a longevity where he has the second highest completion percentage in NFL history, only behind Aaron Rodgers. He's top 20 in almost every single category, whether it's yards, touchdowns, attempts, completions. He checks touchdowns. He checks all those boxes as being a top 20 quarterback, statistically, of all time. Now, the era is different, but for all of the knocks that Russell Wilson isn't a passer, all of his numbers are, over the length of his career, and it's been a long one, that he is a top 20 quarterback. But you take the bad teammate, Seattle, and nobody has looked better in this than Pete Carroll coming out of the Russell Wilson thing.
Yes, being the guy who was ahead of the curve and understanding and kind of letting the air out of the sails.
Masking all of the dysfunction behind Russell Wilson. And it was it wasn't this hunky-dory, everything is fine, and then at the very end it fell apart.
No, the defense wanted to kill him from basically 2015 on.
Pete Carroll kept that thing together. John Schneider helped keep that thing together. And all those guys on the defensive side of the ball, they all kept that thing together too. I mean, but Pete Carroll comes out of this looking like
the Richard Sherman tell-all is going to be.
Everybody went Brady, Belichick. All right, who's the brains of this operation? And everybody's like, oh, it was Tom Brady. Now you're looking at Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. It's the coach, not the quarterback.
Interesting that's the one where I think people thought that Wilson was being held back. Remember? I mean, the narrative there
was
so long.
Stupid.
That's a pretty good psyop by Russell Wilson's agent and his camp.
Let Russ cook.
Yeah.
No, I was never on the let Russ cook bandwagon because we saw what letting Russ cook did. Protect Russ at all costs. And that's why I think Pittsburgh will be a good spot for him.
Because you can minimize that if you can get them kind of figured out.
Well, that's exactly that's the style that Mike Tomlin wants to play. And, I think George Pickens will want to kill him. But that's a different story.
That's a different story.
So I think that if you go, Cousins goes to Atlanta, if Russ goes to Pittsburgh, Baker stays, the Justin Fields, his landing spot becomes a little bit more gray because I don't think Chicago is going to be trading him to think of the teams that would need a quarterback then. Denver would needs a quarterback. Minnesota needs a quarterback.
Las Vegas.
Vegas needs a quarterback. It appears that the Patriots are drafting quarterback. Washington's drafting. Obviously, Chicago's drafting. So you look at where does Justin Fields go? I don't think they're trading him within the division. They're not going to send him to Minnesota and be like, hey, good luck with Justin Jefferson. We only have to play you 2 times a year.
Unless they're sabotaging the Vikings.
That's not a path that I think they want to take from a perception standpoint. So then you go, all right, Justin Fields, if Atlanta's not going to trade for him and Pittsburgh's off the table, Tampa's off the table, does Denver or Vegas trade for Justin Fields? And I think those are becoming more and more viable options. And a guy that I think would be really good in Minnesota, Gardner Minshew.
As a starter?
He could just spin it. And you just going, he's just going to go and he's going to spin it for a season. And then because they have to figure out what they would do at quarterback at that point. And who are the quarterback options? I mean, do they go and get into the Russ Wilson if Kirk leaves? If Kirk leaves,
what does Minnesota do?
You're looking at Minshew. You're looking at trying to trade for Fields, and then you dip into the retread guys, and that's why I'm like Gardner Minshew is because who are those guys? Trey Lance, Ryan Tannehill, Flacco.
Oof. Yikes!
Nick Mullins, who's a backup there. Those are your options.
Oh, God.
Or do they try? Or are they going to reach and are they going to draft a guy?
Because if you're doing that, if you're going retread, I mean, or if you're punting on the season, kind of at quarterback, why not just start the teardown?
Just trade everybody, huh?
I mean, seriously.
See, that's it. But this also goes to
Kirk
the
Cousins
idea that
being your demise.
If Baker Mayfield stays in Tampa and Kirk Cousins stays in Minnesota, then things sort themselves out a little bit easier. Because then at that point, I think Atlanta is trading for Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson still's going to Pittsburgh. And I think that the teardown is happening in Denver, and they are stopgap quarterback. Go for a year. We'll see what happens. And it's not going to be the end of the world for them. But if Kirk Cousins does, in fact, if it is real that he goes to Atlanta, that throws a wrench in multiple teams in what they try to do.
And this is Kirk Cousins being your demise. That hurts.
But if Minnesota lets Kirk Cousins walk, you know who's a great option if you want to draft a guy and you're saying, the hell with it? It takes a really unique spot for Michael Penix to make sense in the first round because he can't get hit. Yep. You don't want him hit. If you have your targets that they trust and they rely on. Minnesota's offensive line was really damn good pass blocking last year. Like they were really, I think the Pro Football Focus had them, I think, in 3rd or 4th in their pass block win rate. One of the best pass blocking offensive lines. That's what you need. And it would make sense. You could win. Like Penix, he has everything. He has the arm strength, accuracy. He's got it between the ears. He would be a guy that could be very successful early. But the injury concerns and the injury history, is it too early to go and get him? Because I think they're in that 11, 12, 13 range with, Vegas and other teams looking for quarterbacks. You're sitting there going, ugh. I think it's Denver, Minnesota, and Vegas are all kind of lumped in the same range drafting in that first round. That's where you go, is our offensive line good enough to take that perceived reach, even though talent-wise, I don't think it's a reach to go Michael Penix Jr. But the injury history, you've got to have an offensive line that can keep him upright and keep the hits away from him. And yeah, you got 11 is Minnesota, 12 Denver, 13 Vegas.
This made me think about something here. What is going to be a bigger, I don't want to say problem. I'm trying to think of the correct way to phrase this, because I think this is an interesting question about the value of quarterback, not only in this kind of free agency class, but in the draft. What is more likely to occur? A team overpays for a Kirk Cousins or trading for Justin Fields, or overdrafts the non-top 3 quarterback?
It is more punitive if you overdraft the next the next quarterback that doesn't fail, or that fails, right? That hurts you, because if you're taking a guy in the first round, that's 4 years with a 5th-year option. And this is draft where you're going to have guys that can play a really long time in that range where you're going, 11 to 13. Like that is reaching that's the ultimate roll of the dice, and you have to be 100% dialed in on his medicals and making sure that it's not. I love Michael Penix Jr. But as the prospect, as the quarterback, he is so stinking good. But you cannot deny, and everybody's like, well, he played the last 2 years at UW, and he was so dinged up at the end of this season. We all saw it. We all saw it. Did he come through? Absolutely. He came through when his team needed it the most. But there's the questions and there's the concerns, because the NFL is a different animal, man. Those, when you get touched up in college, is completely different than when you get touched up in the NFL week in, week out.
Which is an interesting spot to go to, because somebody out there wondered if a particular coach may have ruined Russell Wilson.